Woekker, Wakker, Weet is 'n potsending vir wiskundeonderwysers met trots aangebied deur die Vereniging vir Afrikaanse Wiskundeonderwysers, die VAW. Die potsending mik daartoe om al die kolle te verbind tussen literatuur en die praktyk, om so die wiskundeonderwyser te inspireer en te bemagtig. Juis sodat ons as wiskundeonderwysers kan voortbou op die wêreldklas onderwyspraktyke waarmee ons reeds besig is. Die internet gaan dit moontlik maak om die wêreld te reis in gemak. Ons gaan luister na skrywers, akademici en onderwysers. Daar gaan selfs 'n paar onverwagte gesprekke opduik. So sit agteroor en geniet die reis saam met my, Johan. Totsiens. So Emma, what you just heard was our beautiful native language, which we call Afrikaans. I don't know if you've ever heard that language before.
You know, I have. I've been to South Africa. I was
Great.
only 12 years old, so it's not super fresh in my mind, but the music was beautiful.
Thank you very much. So just some background, who we are, especially for you, and some of the people here who don't really know us. We are actually an Afrikaans organization, but I'm doing this in English because it will not be fair to you if I do this in Afrikaans, because I do not think that you speak Afrikaans, and that's a problem.
So conversation.
Yeah, so to make sure that the conversation flows, I'm going to switch to English. It's my second language, and it's not by choice my second language. I'm not very good at it, and I do mix my tenses, but I do believe that you're a tolerant person, so please forgive me for that, and I hope that the people listening are also very tolerant. Usually we only do this in our mother tongue because we are a minority group, and we are not usually looked after by governmental organizations because we make only a fraction of the population. So we as an organization, we step in and do the PD. That's the slang for professional development I've seen. So we do the PD for the people in Afrikaans in the medium of our mother tongue. So that is in short what and why we are here. And then suddenly in April, we had this big boom and everyone had to move online, and everything changed. We moved from usually helping 60 to 70 teachers at any given moment to helping 1,800 to 2,000 teachers in our PD courses. So it changed a lot of stuff. I mean, up until now, we have 161 participants, and it's growing by the second, which is more than all the teachers that I had at a conference last year physically, all the math teachers. So it's absolutely great. And I came across your book. One of my colleagues sent it to me, and I started reading through it. And I'm doing currently my master's in blended learning. So I really enjoyed it, and it's very practical. And I thought that the teachers in South Africa need to hear this, because we don't really have those sources available on the fly, because most of our teachers, either they teach full-time or they basically just teach full-time. So there's not a lot of teachers that are in the positions that you are currently in, where you actually make a living of doing PD and helping people, etc. So we don't have that yet, but we are working on that. So thank you for your time. Absolutely. So we only have 30 minutes, so I think I'm going to speak very fast. Tell everyone a little bit more about Emma. I don't know, that's my first daughter's name, but I don't know how to pronounce your surname, because in Afrikaans it's going to sound weird. So just tell us more about yourself, and what's the current teaching or educational situation context in America?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Emma Pass. Pass is in like pass the ball. It's actually my husband, a little bit more personal background. My husband is British, but his family lived in South Africa, and he was born in South Africa.
Oh, that's great.
Connection there as well. My background is, as you said, an educational technology consultant. So I do that part-time, training teachers how to use technology tools and how to teach online and in blended environments. But I'm also a classroom teacher as well. I teach 7th and 8th grade language arts, and we're starting school next week. So now I'm like, have to get my curriculum ready as well. And the situation in the States, as you probably have seen from the news, is not fantastic. We still have a lot of outbreaks going on, and schools are very much still in process of deciding what the school year will look like. Last week, one of the first schools on the East Coast opened back up and had to close within one day because there was already cases. So my personal district, I'm in a state called Colorado. We're in the northern part. District is called Poudre Valley. We had announced a plan to go back in a hybrid model where students would spend half of their time at school, half of their time at home, being broken up into smaller groups. And then just yesterday, they announced that we're going to go back to school 100% virtually and online because they've just deemed it unsafe. So that's what it's looking like right now for me.
That is basically our context as well. I just saw someone said your sound is a little bit soft. I just want to check from the other participants. Can you hear Emma clearly when she speaks? Just give me an indication, ja, ja for ja or an N for near. Okay, so it's not necessarily your problem. It's maybe on Rika. It's maybe on your side. I think it was Rika posted it. So if it's your internet connection, maybe you are going to hear it very softly. But I think, okay, she's going to put on earphones, so that's going to change up a bit. Okay.
Does that sound any louder to you?
It sounds the same for me.
Okay.
But the majority of the people said they can hear you fine. So.
Okay. Well, maybe that might help. We'll see.
Okay, good. So yeah, it's the same situation with us. We are in lockdown, and only our grade 7s and grade 12s are currently at school. And the rest of the grades are actually by law supposed to be on holiday, but some of the schools are also teaching them virtually on an online platform. And I think that some of our kids do not have access to the technologies. So the hybrid model that you write about is actually it's something that can work. And when I read through your thing, I saw some of the proposals that you made, and I thought, oh, that is brilliant. Because we actually also have to do stuff like on Mondays, grade 4 should come to school, and on Tuesdays, grade 5s. And we have to make plans, and every school's context is different. But then I also read the word synchronous and asynchronous. So if you can just like explain a little bit better for us, what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous? In Afrikaans, ons gaan dan sê ons asynchronous of synchronies. That's in Afrikaans. So
okay. Yeah, so synchronous and asynchronous are the two different teaching styles that you would consider when teaching online. Synchronous being everything happens together at the same time. Synchronized swimming, if you're familiar with the sport, yes. Right? They're all moving together at the same time. And when teaching, it means that the instruction is being delivered live. So either you're in front of students in person and you're giving them instruction and they're receiving, or you're doing that on video conferencing software like Zoom or Google Meet, right? The factor there is just, are your students actually with you in real time receiving information? Versus asynchronous, right? The opposite of synchronous is when you're either pre-recording a video or pre-packaging a lesson that you're posting or emailing to your students, and they're determining on that day, when will I access this lesson? How long will I spend on it? And they're all doing that at separate times.
Okay, so the child can actually determine his or her own pace. Exactly. With asynchronous. So then I always thought that, like, some of the literature I read, that some of the people use the word hybrid learning and blended learning as like the same thing, but I saw you made a clear distinction. And can you just elaborate on that distinction?
Yeah, and I do think that these terms are still evolving. We're definitely in a new era of educational technology, but in my understanding, hybrid learning refers to place. It's a combination of students coming to a school building, but also staying at home and learning online. Whereas blended learning refers to the tools that we're using. So a combination of paper and books, traditional tools, blended with educational technology tools like computers and websites and links and all of that stuff. So really, blended learning can happen in the school, it can happen online, but hybrid learning refers to where your students are.
So if, from the definition of your book, I would say that the majority of our teachers are currently in a hybrid model where some of their teaching happens at school once a week, that was the case a month ago, where you would have the grade 4 boys on a Tuesday and maybe on a Friday, and then the girls on a Wednesday and a Monday, just to keep just to make all the bathrooms available, because you cannot let the kids go to the bathrooms. So there was a lot of plans that the people made. So it's a hybrid model, I think, that we currently follow, and we have been blended or learning in a blended environment before COVID, because we've mixed the different environments. So that brings me to the next question. Do you have any experience teaching within a hybrid model?
I do. So again, I was talking a little bit about my background, 7th and 8th grade language arts teacher, and my school is a hybrid school. So even before COVID, our students were only coming to campus about 2.5 days a week. So our pre-COVID schedule was Tuesdays and Thursdays, students were on campus, and we were doing a really normal school day. Then Wednesday morning, they had the option to come in as well if they wanted to get one-on-one help from a teacher, or if they wanted to work in small groups with their friends. But Monday, Friday, and Wednesday afternoon, students are at home all day. So my background is in hybrid teaching, and it's a really unique moment right now, because last year, this time, nobody knew what hybrid teaching was. Yeah. And now we are all becoming hybrid teachers. So part of my inspiration for writing the book is just sharing my knowledge and my background in hybrid learning.
So I also read in your book that you say you live in a very privileged environment where some of the kids have parents that work from home. So this model is context specific. It won't work in, say, for instance, rural communities or in other parts of the States, and in our case, in other parts of South Africa, but schools that actually can opt for a hybrid model. Can you maybe convince them from experience that it's worth considering?
Absolutely. And I would just start by saying it's not for everyone, right? Just like any type of education we do is not for every student. It's insane to think that one lesson or one method of teaching is always going to work for all students. So I'm excited by this prospect of offering different school models for different students who it works for. So I'll say that to start. And then second, but for the students it does work for, it is a really amazing experience. You are offering students the opportunity to really self-direct their learning in a way that they don't typically have. They have a lot more agency on those at-home days to complete their asynchronous work, to manage their time, and to practice some of the skills that they'll need for the workforce, right? A lot of us need these self-directing, self-starting skills, and in a hybrid school, we're teaching our students how to do that. And then there's a whole lot of other reasons why hybrid learning really works well for some of our students. Some of them have medical needs that prohibit them from being at school all the time. A lot of them have social anxieties that make it hard for them to come to school all the time. A lot have extracurricular activities. They play sports, they do music, and they want more flexibility in their week to do those things. So for a group of students, it is an amazing model, and I've just seen my students thrive in it.
But isn't it difficult as a teacher to give up control? Because basically half of the week you don't have any control, or maybe you do if you know technology. But I think it's so difficult traditionally for us teachers to give up that control and tell the kid, okay, now everything is in your hands. Wasn't it difficult the first time you experienced that?
Yes, it is definitely a process of, just as you said, giving up control more and more. I think the best advice I have is think of yourself a little bit more like a manager on those at-home days. Not then a teacher, you're a teacher and a manager, and just do those little check-ins with your students. And so one thing I recommend in the book is really make sure you're holding your students accountable for doing that work at home, and make sure that they know that it's meaningful to you that they do it. So if a student is working at home asynchronously on Monday, Tuesday morning when I see them, whether that's over Google Meet or in person, we always start with a check-in from the day before's activity, so that I know and they know, hey, this is important to do. It's not just a piece of work for busy work because you're at home, and it's not just for, to have something to do that day, but we're always checking in and tying in those asynchronous lessons. So that's a big piece of advice. And I know it'll be hard right now when we're all scrambling to learn how to do this, but just keep checking in with your students, hold them accountable for doing their work. And get comfortable with letting go of control.
It is going to be difficult. And I think our teachers, up until now, we've been in this for almost 4 months now. Some of us are still struggling, but I see a lot of our teachers flourish, and I get a lot of good feedback. But the thing I want to ask you, like, at the end of the day, states or departments of education, they're going to measure you according to some form of output. So I want to know, have you seen any like positive output in terms of results? Or it shouldn't always revolve around results, but let's just talk about results. Do the kids in your school outperform kids in other schools that are 100% traditional?
The students at our school traditionally perform either at grade level or slightly above. So we're performing at the same or slightly above the average in our district.
And for the kid, I can just think, if I would have autonomy over my time, it frees up a little bit of like that excitement. Like I can do my sports at 9 a.m. in the morning, and I only have to do my work at 3 in this afternoon. I have some choices to make, which is a really good skill to set up a kid with as they go into adult life, especially in the fourth industrial revolution. And you said something about self-directed learning, and that is not something that is really prevalent in traditional classrooms. And this hybrid model really calls for kids to actually take measures in their own hands. So the one question that I also wanted to ask is, how do you hold these kids accountable? Like, you cannot, in the class, you can use your face and your expressions, and you can use your authority or stuff like that. But how do you do it virtually?
Yeah. So one thing, again, I'm always checking that asynchronous work. So when the students are at home learning that day, I'm still working that day. So I'm checking in with them in real time. A lot of those documents and tools that I use are live and collaborative, meaning if a student is working on a Google Doc, I could be on that Google Doc from my house, adding comments in the margins. And yes, if a student is posted a Flipgrid video, I get a notification and I can go to respond to that in real time as well. So that's one way. And then I always make sure at the end of an asynchronous learning day, an at-home day, I know which students have completed their lessons and which ones have not. So again, I can check in with them the next day, and I pull them into a small group and I just say, hey, what happened yesterday? Why isn't your work done? What can we do? When are you going to get that done? It's just those, verbal check-ins with students. And then the other thing is I do a lot of live synchronous check-ins with students. So even if we're not teaching online on a day, I'll hold office hours on Google Meet. So my students know from, 9 a.m. to 11, I'll be on Google Meet and they can just pop in. They can say hi. We can look at a piece of work together, or we'll do whole class check-ins where everybody can share with each other what they've been doing, what they've been learning. So just a lot of ways to try and connect online, even when students are at home.
Isn't this administratively like burdensome compared to traditional lessons from your experience?
For me, it's just a different kind of work. I think it's actually for me been easier than a full-time traditional teaching job, because when you're in a full-time traditional teaching job, you're usually on, right? You're teaching all day, every day, 5 days a week, and it leaves you very little time to do the other stuff. At least in the States, we get usually 1 hour a day to plan and grade and do everything else that's involved in teaching, which we know is impossible. So having those 3 asynchronous days where I am holding office hours and I am doing check-ins with students, but I also have the rest of that day to do the rest of the admin stuff. So yes, there is maybe slightly more admin work, but I have more time to do it. And
yes, it's more flexible.
Yeah.
It's more flexible. Yeah.
More
okay,
flexible.
That's cool. And here's another interesting question. How many kids do you have in your class typically? Because we want to compare that with our kids.
Sure. We typically, an average class size in the US is somewhere between 20 to 30 students, and our school is the same. So it depends on the enrollment any given year, but anywhere from 20 to 30 students per class.
Yeah, we are more in the area of 30 to 40, where we also have schools going to 60. Yes, so it is crazy. Now I want to ask you, and that is a big concern, especially for the very traditional teachers. When we, especially when we do assessments, we are so scared that that learners cheat. And I know you've written about it in your book as well. Just give us some tips. How should we think about this cheating, and how should we is there any ways we can avoid it?
Yeah. So there is a whole chapter in the book, but I'll summarize for you kind of my key takeaways. First, is there any good way to do an online assessment and ensure your students aren't going to be cheating? No. Just wipe that from your brain. No, there's not. Because even if you have a security tool that monitors, have their own on the app, they can have other system that can tell answers, like there's just no good way. So in my book, I recommend either one, saving your assessments for in-person days. If you really want to do a summative assessment and gauge understanding, do it when your students are sitting in front of you. Or two, think about terms, right? Work with the realities that you can search information, figure out how to work with that. Ask your students to use their resources to come up with original thoughts or original projects. And also I talk a little bit about developing culture in which we talk about cheating, what it means, and allowing students the opportunity to redo and revise work so that there's not that pressure on them to do it perfectly the first time, and they can always learn and get better from that. So there is a whole big chapter about it in the book, but no easy answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, and from your answer, the thing that I saw today on Twitter that really it prickled me. It was a teacher who asked his class to go into their houses and take a photo of something that represents volume and surface area. And now you actually ensure that kids don't cheat, because you will see if someone posts the same photo. And then this one kid posted a peeled banana, and then the banana skin he laid on the kitchen tabletop, and he said that's the surface area, and then the banana itself, that's the volume, which was quite a brilliant idea. And it just means we have to think differently. If we think traditional assessments, kids will find a way to cheat that, because it's relatively easy to cheat them. But if you think open questions, context questions, unique questions, I think that's very difficult to cheat. So another thing that I read that was quite interesting, and I don't know why I haven't thought about it, was the word move. And I realized, like, since we've been working at home and I sit in my chair the whole day, I've gained, in my country we call it kilograms, in your country you call it something else, but I've gained some mass, and my back is aching, and I'm sitting the whole day, and there's not a trigger that's telling me stand up, do this, do that. And I saw you wrote about it quite a bit. So please just tell the teachers why it's necessary or to move, and some tips on how to get kids to move in an asynchronous lesson.
Sure. So one, just like you said, I think the same reasons why it's important to move for kids are the same as adults, but even more so because they're children and they're full of energy and they want to run around. So in synchronous, when I'm teaching live online, I'll give students challenges like everybody get up from their screens, go touch 3 walls they can't connect. Everybody run to your kitchen, grab a spoon, come back and show me. Just some kind of fun little brain break in the middle of the lesson or at the beginning of the lesson to get us moving. You mentioned asynchronous lessons. So those are days when students are at home on their screens. And yeah, they could forget, especially when they're not used to having to self-regulate their time. Oh, I have to get up and move. So there's a couple of options. One is there are extensions for your Chrome browser, meaning when you're on the internet, you can set up a program that will remind you to move every 30 minutes, or it will remind you to move every hour. So you could consider having your students use a tool like that. However, even better, just because we're teaching online doesn't mean all of our activities need to be digital. You can give your students a task like go walk, you know, a kilometer and list all the things you see on that walk, and then take a photo with your description. So an activity for that day could be movement based, and then you're just asking students to describe or show evidence via photo of that activity that they did.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Like you can ask the kids, go and take photos of all the triangles in your house or all the circles. That's it. And that's the thing. The moment we think PC and we think virtual, we think sit down, laptop open, that's it. And I think if we can just take this away from the chat, that hybrid learning doesn't mean everything should be done on the computer, sitting with your headsets on. Yeah, it's open. And that's really cool.
Even more open than you are in a classroom, right? Thinking
Yes.
about doing an activity like that where you have to walk a kilometer, you need usually parent permission. You need to organize 30 to 60 students on a walk. Like it's much more difficult, but when students are at home, they actually have more freedom to do and explore and create than they might in the classroom.
Well, that's really cool. I see we have 5 minutes left. Then you have to depart. I just want you to quickly tell our schools, especially we have a lot of rural schools with old computers. And I saw that you recommended there is a way to get those old computers to run at a really good speed.
Absolutely.
Just to tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I saw a question in the chat box about internet in the US. It said free internet. We definitely don't have free internet. We do have some of the same connectivity issues where a lot of our students do not have reliable access to internet. We have a lot of rural students who do not have reliable access to the internet. So we're definitely dealing with some of those issues as well. One solution that a lot of our districts have come up with is to provide personal hotspots to students. So if you have the budget to do that, that's one option. Another is to ask for businesses to partner with you and open up their Wi-Fi network to surrounding neighborhoods or surrounding communities that they can come either near your business or to your business in order to work. So those are a couple options for internet access. In terms of your devices, there's an amazing program called Neverwhere, and Neverwhere will wipe a computer completely clean of all of the files, all of your operating systems. So if you have any files, you want to make sure you save them somewhere else, because it'll just wipe your computer clean, and it'll put Chrome OS operating system on it, which turns any computer into a Chromebook. So the students open it up and they're connected to the web. You can't download like software and a lot of big programs to it, but most of what we're doing is online and
Yes.
In the cloud. So Neverwhere will turn an old device into basically a new Chromebook. And it is free to do this. If you do want to manage the device, if you're a part of G Suite for Education and you want to, kind of be able to monitor it, there's a small fee per device, but there is a free option. So that's definitely something to look into.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you for your time, for answering the questions that I pulled up. If you would like to just drop your details in the chat, the ones that you're happy with dropping there, and also maybe the link to the book so the teachers can download the book if they want to. I know that you have to add some details before you can download it. That was a very clever way to get, what's the right word? Get consent, I think. And you also, before we can download your book in your Google form, that was really clever. I thought we had to read through your T's and C's and tick it and then download it. That is really clever. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's a good idea. I'm going to steal that.
Okay, feel free.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I'm going to spend 10 or 15 minutes more with the teachers, but you are more than happy to go now. I know you have another meeting at 6 p.m. our time.
I do, busy girl, but it's been so nice to talk to you all, and I wish you all the best. And I hope to hear from you on my website or on Twitter. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, Emma.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so daar's het julle vinnige gesprek wat ek met Emma gehad het, en dit is baie lekker om te sien wat sy gedoen het om, hoe kan mens sê, die situasie wat nou by in Amerika afspeel, om dit om dit te tackle. So sy was baie proaktief. Sy het hierdie boek geskryf vir onderwysers gegee want hulle skole gaan nou eers oopmaak. Hulle was toe tot en met nou toe sedert amper die begin van die jaar. So ietsie wat ek net vir julle wil wys wat eintlik vir my baie mooi of lekker was om aan te dink en ek dink dalk gaan ons vir skole in die toekoms van die skole en ek sê van die skole, dit gaan definitief nie al die skole wees nie, gaan dalk begin anders dink oor skool self. Want dalk kan ons as ons goeders net bietjie herstruktureer, kan ons dalk 'n bietjie meer goedjies inpas. So ek gaan gou vinnig my skerm met julle deel en dan gaan ek vir julle wys hoe lyk Emma se hybrid rooster van hulle skool wat sy nou gedeel het in haar boek. So kom ons maak dit gou hier so oop. Dan sê julle gou vinnig vir my die chats of julle my PDF kan sien. Daar staan groep A, groep B. Net vinnig so in die chats of julle dit kan sien. Baie dankie julle. Okay, so hier is nou 'n voorbeeld van hoe hulle hybrid skool dit is 'n model. So byvoorbeeld maandag, hulle het nou die skool opgedeel in 2 groepe, groep A en groep B. En op maandag is groep A on-site, so hulle is by die skool, maar groep B is remotely. So groep B kan nou tipies wees graad 4 en graad 6 en graad wat ook al, maar hulle werk van die huis af en julle kan dit dan bepaal, is dit asynchronous of asynchronous of synchronous, met ander woorde, gaan jy vir die kinders video's voor die tyd gee en hulle moet dit deurkyk of gaan hulle lewendig met 'n Zoom inskakel, of wat is die geval hoe jy wil hê daai kinders moet by die huis leer? Is dit leeswerk wat hulle het? Is dit WhatsApp videoetjie of wat ook al die geval kan wees, maar ons kan hulle by die huis laat leer dan. En op Dinsdag flip hulle dit. En op Woensdag het hulle die high needs students on-site. Met ander woorde, kinders wat regtig 'n behoefte het om by die skool bietjie one-on-one met die juffrou te werk of so, en dis wat sy van gepraat het. Hulle kom skool toe, die res, as jy nie wil nie, hoef jy nie. En jou onderwyser het daai Woensdag bietjie tyd om te beplan. Want as daar min kinders opdaag, dan het hy vrye tyd, maar as daar baie kinders opdaag, dan het hy moeilikheid. So, as ek nou dink, donderdag en vrydag dieselfde, en dan kan jy kan jou week bietjie strek. Jy kan, ek dink ons kan bietjie kreatief raak, as ons begin dink oor hierdie maniere. En wat lekker is, en onthou, dit is konteks spesifiek. Jy ken jou gemeenskap, jy weet hoe lyk jou mense. Maar dit beteken nie omdat dit nie vir een kan werk, dat dit nie vir almal mag werk nie. En dis 'n standpunt wat die skoolondersteuningssentrum graag inneem. So dit beteken nie omdat ons nie almal kan help, dat ons niemand moet help nie. Want as ons gaan wag vir die dag dat ons almal moet help, gaan ons nooit niemand help nie. So, of iemand help nie. So, ons kan regtig kreatief wees as onderwysers. Hier's 'n simpel voorbeeld wat ek by 'n skool voorgestel het, was hoekom het ons 4 graad 8 onderwysers? Want dit is 'n groot skool. Hoekom het ons 4 graad 8 wiskunde onderwysers? As hulle dieselfde inhoud gee. Hoekom maak ons nie een van daardie onderwysers vir 'n tema die hoof sê maar van jy gaan diep induik in algebra. Jy, Sunny, gaan diep induik in meetkunde. Jy, Gertjie, gaan diep induik in trigonometrie. En julle bied daai lesse aan tot julle maksimale potensiaal. Julle gaan uithaal en wys. Dan die res van ons sit, jy kan selfs in die skool sit. Baie skole het smartboards of jy kan op ander maniere dit doen. Dan sit al 4 klasse gelyktydig in dieselfde les, maar in verskillende klasse. En die ander wiskundeonderwysers is fasiliteerders. Hulle is die wat rondloop. Nou het jy jou hande los om bietjie na jou kinders te kan kyk. En wat's lekker, jy het baie meer oop periodes nou. Goed, want jy hoef nou nie meer graad 8-1 te onderrig en dan direk daarna graad 8-2 en dan direk daarna graad 8-3 nie. Jy maak nou ruimte vir jou onderwysers en ek dink ons kan begin anders dink oor hierdie goeters en ek dink ons moet. Maar net vanaf vir julle hier is nou spesifiek haar skool, hoe dit werk op maandag. So Monday morning, direct instruction on campus, lunch, en dan die afternoon, direct instruction on campus. En dan dinsdag het hulle almal 'n virtuele dag. En op daai virtuele dag kan jy kan rugby insit 10 uur en jy kan cricket insit 11 uur. Maar Jannie weet wat daai dag gedoen moet wees. So as hy wil rugby oefen 9 uur en cricket wil oefen 10 uur of wat ook al ek gesê het, dan weet hy moet voor of na die tyd werk. Maar nou as skool 'n volle blok vat tot en met 2 uur, en dan vat sport tot en met 5 uur vol blok, dan kan ons nie met ons tyd bietjie buigsaam wees nie, so dan moet ons familietyd in die aande opoffer om huiswerk te doen, of wat ook al die geval is. En ek dink ons kan regtig as skole net 'n bietjie anders dink, 'n bietjie meer kreatief dink, en net buite die tradisionele boksie uitklim. En onthou, die tradisionele boksie is absoluut nodig. So daar was 'n tyd wat mense gedink het, aanlyn leer is die antwoord. So daar het 100% aanlyn skole begin, daar het 100% aanlyn universiteite begin, en dit was tot minimale sukses. Dit was tot minimale sukses. Lees ek die chat terwyl ek praat, sorry man. So as ons regtig dan die navorsing na kyk, as hulle die beste roete vorentoe is 'n vervlegte leermodel. Met ander woorde, dis 'n model waar ons tradisionele praktyke wat werk, want ons het 'n onderwyser nodig wat sy hand op 'n kind se skouer kan sit en sê, ek sien jou. Ons het dit nodig. Ons wie by die werk, vandat ons van die huis af werk, het ons produktiwiteit in die dak ingeskiet, en dan is daar 'n limiet wat bereik is, wat ons uit idees uit hardloop. En dan kom ons weer by die kantoor by mekaar, lekker brainstorm, maak al die varkies los, en dan gaan ons weer terug, en dan werk ons weer hard. So die kontaktyd by skool is nodig, want mense is 'n sosiale wese. Maar wanneer ons werk, het ons nie nodig om by die skool te werk nie. Jy kan jou werk doen waar ook al jy wil. Die werk moet net gedoen wees. So kom ons dink 'n bietjie oor hierdie praktyke. Kom ons vervleg ons leermodelle. Maak van dit aanlyn, maak van dit aflyn. COVID het nou vir ons gesê dit kan werk. En ek dink ons gaan aangenaam verras wees aan die einde van die jaar met eksamens, met ons kinders wat selfgerig leer. Maar ek stem saam, die teenkant is ook waar. Ons kinders wat geen dissipline, geen selfgerigte leer in hulle murg en been het nie. Daardie kinders gaan vinniger en vinniger agteruit, terwyl die kinders wat bietjie selfgerig kan leer, gaan vinniger en vinniger vooruit. Maar wat jy nou eintlik vir die kind sê is, hierso, die bal is in jou hande. Dis nou jou tyd. Neem verantwoordelikheid oor jou leer. Kom ons raak leergesentreerd en minder leerder gesentreerd, en kom ons maak regtig leer die middelpunt van hierdie skool. En dan gaan jy sien kinders gaan begin die saak in hulle eie hande neem. En dis wat jy wil hê. Jy wil hê 'n kind moet uit jou skool uitstap met murg in sy bene, hy moet kan regop staan, en hy moet kan instap by 'n werksplek en sê, dit wil ek gedoen het, dit wil ek gedoen het, dis hoe ek dit gedoen wil hê, in plaas van te sit, wat moet ek doen, wat moet ek doen, wat moet ek doen? Want die probleem is, as ons gaan sit en wag om vir iemand om vir ons te sê wat om te doen, gaan ons op die einde van die dag niks doen nie. So daar is 'n kort wat ek geleer het uit Emma se boek uit. Ek wil hê, julle moet ook asseblief die boek lees as julle kan, en ek sien nou, Luneldi sê, Johan, ek het begin om my klas na die flip classroom toe te swaai, en dit werk ook fantasties. Leerder kyk video's by die huis, en doen die klas in die werk ongelooflik goed. Ek love die volgende woord vir flip classroom in Afrikaans, kantelklas. Ek het dit by Renate Roers geleer. So, met ander woorde, dis 'n briljante manier, is kom ons laat die kinders by die huis leer op hulle eie vrye tyd, want van die kinders moet die inhoud 6 keer kyk. Ek maak altyd 'n grappie, die rugby ouens gaan dalk daai video op slow motion moet sit. Maar dit is net regtig grappie, ek is baie lief vir rugby. En dan kom die kind terug, van die kinders het 3 ure spandeer aan sy voorbereiding, want regtig, hy sukkel. Ander kind het dit gou vinnig in 'n japtrap deurgestap. En nou kom hy by die klas, hy's reeds voorbereid, met ander woorde, dit wat ons in die klas gaan doen, gaan effektief wees. Hoeveel van ons werk moet ons oor en oor doen? Hoekom? Want die omgewing is nie leergesentreerd nie. Die oomblik wat jy net begin diep duik in 'n tema in, dan lei die klok en dan is die volgende periode. So kom ons dink bietjie anders. Hugo, ek gesê baie interessante ding. Hy sê daar's minder dissipline probleme. Ek weet daar's uitvallers skole wat wel dissipline probleme het, maar daar is skole wat dissipline het regtig begin aan die of hoe kom ek sê amper sê aan die agterspeen sê. Dissipline probleme het regtig agteruit gegaan. Ja, 'n mens kan dit eintlik sê. Dit het verminder. En want ons dink anders en ons hou die kinders die heeltyd besig. En met dit bedoel ek nie soos die kindgesentreerde ouer dat jy jou kind met die hele tyd besig hou nie. Ek bedoel die kind is die hele tyd besig met iets produktief en konstruktief. En dit klink hemels en mense sê dit is idillies en dit werk net in eerste wêreldse lande. En ek weet daar's van julle wat gedink het Amerika is reg oor Amerika is dit eerste wêrelds en sy het nou bewys dat selfs in haar streek wat regtig 'n goeie streek is internet 'n probleem. Nie al die kinders het toegang tot toestelle nie. So mense het hierdie snippets van hierdie Beverly Hills skole wat lyk of hulle alles het, maar dit is reg oor die wêreld is standaard dat nie almal het toegang tot alles nie. Maar tog gaan ons nie stop nie, want as ons kinders se ingesteldheid reg kry, gaan die kinders plan maak. Goed, my ma het op 'n Sondag aand saam met my het ons die dorp plat gery op soek na 'n printer, want ek moes 'n taak geprint het nadat ek hom klaar gemaak het. Maar ja, ek het bietjie raas gekry want ek het dit gelos tot 99. So kom ons kyk nog enige vrae voordat ek afsluit. So gewoonlik so 40 leerders in 'n klas, maar sê dit is daar net 20 in 'n klas, so die dissipline is fantasties. Ja, die ander 20 is by die huis. En dalk hoekom moet ons al die kinders op 'n slag by die skool hê? Ek verstaan in die sosio-ekonomiese gevalle wil die kinders eerder almal by die skool hê want by die huise gaan dit baie sleg, maar kyk na die konteks van jou omgewing, kyk na die konteks van jou skool en maak op grond van dit 'n besluit, nie 'n sosialistiese besluit wat werk vir almal nie, want daar is nie so iets nie. Dankie Ronda, ek klink normaal. Jy's een van 3 mense wat dit sê. Goed, ek lees nog 'n vraagie. Ek gaan hierdie webinar later gaan ons dit beskikbaar stel. Ons is nog net besig om al hierdie goeders te edit. Dit wat verskriklik lank, so asseblief wees geduldig. Ons sal dit vir julle stuur. Maar vir nou kan julle maar die evangelie van hierdie boek verkondig aan alle volke, tonge, tale en nasies. Julle het die toegang tot hierdie boek, dit is gratis, asseblief deel dit buitensyd. Met dit gaan ek afsluit. Baie dankie julle, dankie vir julle tyd, dankie vir julle toewyding. Dankie dat julle as Afrikaans sprekende onderwysers regtig seker maak dat my kinders eendag in Afrikaans gaan skole en dat ek nie gaan hoef te skroom oor die kwaliteit van hulle onderrig nie. Baie dankie, ek gaan moet afsluit met 'n liedjie. Dit is mos maar die tradisie hierso vir die mense wat nie weet nie. So kom ons gaan, julle moet soet wees en mag die Here julle seën. Kom ons kyk wat het ons hier.